Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I want to dive into a pretty deep subject today, which is joint pain, what causes joint pain. So I'm going to be pulling some knowledge not only from health coaching, but also from my background as a physical therapist and just what I've seen over 25 years of why I've seen people with joint pain come into my clinic for treatment, and then give you maybe a different thought about why and how some of that can be prevented. So you'll see me referring to my notes because I've made some. First of all, there are many reasons that we may have inflammation in our body. One of the most obvious is a traumatic injury. So if you hurt yourself, the body brings in lots of fluids which contain properties of healing in them. That's how the body starts the healing process. Oftentimes, what can happen to us with that is the body overreacts and sends too much swelling into an area, and then you develop a chronic pain. So that leads into the things like fibromyalgia and those kind of syndromes where the body's just constantly overreacting to what it perceives as an injury. There's arthritic conditions. Obviously, in my line of work, I see a lot of people with joint replacements and then osteoarthritis, which is basically just where years of work or certain postures will cause the joints to begin to wear, and that results in inflammation in that particular joint as well. So a lot of times, depending on the severity, we're often referred to specialists. My line of work, a common specialist, is orthopedic. They deal with things like inflammation in joints, so you'll be referred to them to help address some of these issues. But a recurring theme, if you research about what causes joint pain, is that key, which is inflammation. So today we have the many disease processes, like I've already mentioned, fibromyalgia, that are just a result of just chronic inflammation throughout the body. What's causing that inflammation? So let's dive in a little deeper. So first of all, I've pointed out the 4 causes. Obviously, injury is the number 1, chronic overuse is a reason, and arthritic changes. But let's bring our attention to number 4, which is food. Can our food cause inflammation in our body? Could it cause us to have enhanced joint pain and conditions like fibromyalgia? Could they be helped by changing our diet? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Obviously, if you've lost cushion in the joint or you've had damage to cartilage, changing your diet is not going to absolutely fix that. So I don't want to stand here and anybody, think that that's what I'm saying. All right, so cushioning in the joint is what helps prevent there from being friction between the bones. When you get friction between the bones, that results in a lot of discomfort. So we have built-in cushion in all of the joints. And when this is missing, of course, there's going to be inflammation there because the body's response is to try to provide cushion, to try to prevent that pain. I'm just going to tell you that our body's number 1 goal is to avoid pain. And our brain is trying to do whatever we ask it to do in the most efficient way. Sometimes it's not the right way, but it's efficient in the brain's mind. I want to dive in a little bit to, first of all, it keeps me in business, all of this stuff as a therapist, because our body's pain is what drives people to the doctor, which ultimately drives people into my clinic. How do I get rid of this pain? So I think we could agree that joint pain is a common cause or reason that people seek out help from the doctor. I need to get away from this pain. So I want to introduce something that's maybe a little bit unusual to you guys. How many of you have ever heard someone say, well, I went to my orthopedic and he suggested I see a nutritionist or change my diet in order to help alleviate some of this inflammation? I have been practicing as a physical therapist for 25 years, and I've never heard anybody say that they were given that advice from their orthopedic or even their medical doctor. I don't think that we're completely recognizing food as a cause of inflammation in our body. There are 6 key foods that we talked about last week that are really culprits when it comes to creating inflammation. One of the biggest is sugar. But you add to that, you add gluten, eggs, corn, soy. People are responding to those in a negative way. So you end up with a chronic response from your body. So if you already have a joint, let's say, that's injured, and then you're eating foods that increase that inflammation elsewhere in the body, it's just adding to your pain. So I'm here to suggest to you Not that you're going to cure bone-on-bone arthritis from changing your diet, but that oftentimes you can help alleviate some of the symptoms that are occurring because of that. Diet change most definitely impacts inflammation. I'm not just here to tell you that based on something I've read or because of class. I personally have experienced this. I was having a lot of arthritic, what I can perceive as arthritic pain in my elbows and both knees, and I couldn't get away from it. No matter what I did, no matter what I tried, it would not get better. But I will tell you, when I stopped eating gluten, the pain slowly subsided. And I'm sitting here in this chair today without elbow pain at all, because I have made that commitment that I understand what's causing my pain, and I've chosen not to have gluten in my diet. So I have firsthand experienced that. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know if a lot of times we recognize how much impact the food we eat has on how we feel, even when it comes to things like our joints. And then secondly, I'm going to tell you about a patient I had. He came into the clinic. He had had a severe injury. It had been about 5 years prior to his coming in. He presented with a hip replacement, so he had gotten to the point to where he needed to have the joint replaced. And we were talking about his history a little bit, and he said, you know, I injured my hip, and at the time they said, so this would have been 5 years prior, that I needed to just go ahead and have the joint replaced. But instead of doing that, he chose to make some pretty major diet changes that he had maintained over that 3 to 4 year period, and he had no pain during that time. I'm telling you that his x-ray showed bone-on-bone arthritis in his hip, and for 3 years he lived pain-free with that, because he chose to eat clean, is what he called it, and that removed a lot of the inflammation in his body. Now, he eventually had the hip replacement, but I'm going to tell you that he recovered quicker than anybody I've ever witnessed. He had very little pain after surgery because he continued with that consistent diet that reduced the inflammation. Now, one thing that's important for you guys to understand is what causes inflammation for me may not cause inflammation for you. I think that's where a one-size-fits-all approach is not the answer, and that's going back to last week's topic of the elimination diet. Each one of us have things that trigger that inflammatory process that we have to figure out for ourselves. All right, so I want to make one last key point. Inflammation equals pain. Okay? So if you take out this, you also reduce or eliminate that. It's important to understand that. So even though we might not avoid major surgeries and things like that, we may eventually have to have them, we can definitely have an impact on our recovery and the pain that we experience with recovery. I'm just encouraging you guys to open your mind a little bit and consider that foods can be a source of inflammation. So that's going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys are enjoying these. I want you to like and subscribe and check back in every week. We put up a video on Fridays, trying to just provide any knowledge we can to help you along. Until next time.